Good morning, Pam. How are you doing?
I am well.
Hey, Pam, let's start this interview with you telling us a little about yourself, Ganas Consulting. Am I saying it right? Is it Ganas or
Ganas.
Ganas?
Almost.
Okay,
Yes. I
Ganas.
learned that Ganas in Malaysian means brutal, but
Oh,
but my definition comes from the Spanish word, which means
oh,
intense desire to do something, inner motivation, drive. So
okay. So Ganas and ECN, Escape from Cubicle Nation. Why don't you tell us a little bit about all these things?
sure. Yeah, well, the main work that I do is I work with people that are in corporate jobs that feel like there is a little bit more to life and they might potentially want to leave and start a business. And so I have a blog, Escape from Cubicle Nation, which I've written for the last 4 years on the topic, and that morphed into a book, which just came out on April 30th of the same name, Escape from Cubicle Nation. And I work with people in a whole number of different ways. One-on-one, I have some group programs, and I'm also starting to hit the road and meet with people in person. I just did my first workshops this last week in the Bay Area and Portland, Oregon.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So let's go back a little and talk about how it all started. If you could give us a little bit more information on the background about your entrepreneurial aspirations. Were you ever in a 9 to 5 jail or the cubicle farm or the cubicle nation which we talk about? And how did you escape out of there?
That's great. Well, I definitely was in a cubicle. The funny thing, which people may not believe, is I actually was not a disgruntled employee. I really liked working as an employee. I worked for a financial services company in San Francisco, where I'm from originally, and I actually really enjoyed it. And things started to change for me when we had a merger. We were bought by another company, and many of the people that I'd loved to work with had left, and they were going to other places. And I think that's when I realized the significance of who I had around me, and I love my work so much greatly because I work with really wonderful, smart, mentoring people. And when they left, the dynamic really changed. And so I had just turned 30. I, during my 20s, had also been very active of teaching and training martial arts, and I had spent many, many, many hours working. Probably my whole 20s, I was very much a happy workaholic in that I'd worked all during the day. I'd leave, go directly to class, and sometimes do 3 or 4 classes a night, not to mention weekends. So I think I got pneumonia when I turned 30. My body shut down. It was time for a change. And that's when I just quit my job without any plan, which, by the way, is not my recommendation. But this was 1996. 1996 in the Bay Area. Anybody who remembers that time, it was definitely a time of great growth in Silicon Valley. And I looked around for a regular job. I never considered that I was going to work for myself. I didn't think I had it in me. I really didn't. I didn't know what was involved. But after a few months of looking for a job, which I had offers, none of them just felt interesting to me. And I started to work as a contractor at Hewlett Packard with my old manager, who I prior worked with at the financial services company. And as soon as I started working for myself, I just felt amazing and free and liberated. And I realized that all of my years as a volunteer with the martial arts organization actually had prepared me for entrepreneurial life. And that was 13 years ago, and I haven't really looked back.
That's great. Now, did you ever feel like overall, over the period of time, the challenging years which we were just talking about, did you ever feel like going back, taking up a job and giving up on the entrepreneurial aspirations and the dreams you had?
Do you know, I have never considered it for 1 minute. And that is just my own personal feeling about it. I'm one of these people, if you know Jim Collins, who wrote the book Good to Great, was a former professor of entrepreneurship at Stanford. He said certain people are genetically incapable of working in a job. They're just wired for something different. And that's really what I felt once I started to work for myself. I was lucky in that I did corporate consulting for about 10 years. So I did leadership consulting and change management for many, many companies all throughout the U.S. and Europe. And what I did is I lived through the meltdown in Silicon Valley in 2000. I was working specifically there, many clients in technology. But I saw the writing on the wall. I knew that things were shifting a little bit, and I had made some specific reaches out to other industries. I started working for Fireman's Fund Insurance, which was also in the Bay Area, financial services. Charles Schwab became a client. And so I always proactively was directing myself in places where the economy wasn't good, because the nature of what I did not really matter what the industry was. It was helping people to work together effectively and look at the human side of business, no matter what kind of business it was. So for me, I I believe it or not, even the thought of working for somebody else, it gives me the hives. I'm metaphorically speaking, metaphorical hives. I've been asked many times by clients if I would like to come on full time, and I respectfully decline because I'm really made to work for myself.
That's great. That's great. And most of our members and readers here on Breaking the 9 to 5 Jail feel that way. That's why they are members here, Breaking the 9 to 5 Jail. Yeah.
That's right.
So now, speaking of meltdown, as you know, we are having bad news from all over the place, and we are in another meltdown right now. Is it smart to write? Is it smart to start a business right now?
I think it's extremely smart to begin investigating and planning if starting your business is something that has been part of your overall career plans. Now, in any market situation, which we've seen in the past, there are always horrendous things to avoid, like the industry my husband's company is in, which is construction. We're here in Phoenix, Arizona. I would never advise anybody right now to begin up a construction company because you'd be fighting against the market, right? It's very, very challenging. But there are definitely opportunities which you can look for in what's happening and shifting in the market. That said, of course, I understand and experience the fact that many people are holding back. Individual consumers are not buying as much. Certain markets are really have more of a freeze due to credit constraints and so forth. So my perspective on it is it's actually the best possible time to really begin to work small, to be testing and trying ideas. Depending upon where somebody is in the continuum, I call it the scale of loathing that you have for your job, from a 1 being my job is fine, it's okay, to 10 being the fact, usually for people, that my job is literally making me sick.
Yeah.
I'm having panic attacks, I'm depressed. Right, I'm in a jail, feeling very bad. So where your scale of loathing is really high, that's where I would really encourage people to be doing very specific little things on the side to get out. But I really look at it more in the bigger picture of our lives. Things will happen much like nature, right? We can't always control everything about a natural disaster coming. You know, we know that we live on planet Earth, where our markets and our very habitat is something that's unstable. So the bigger picture is, what do you really want to do with your work life? And what's the best environment for you? What's the best way that you want to work? Knowing that for many of us, we may work in different ways over the course of our career. And I think it's the best time for sure now that we know that there really is no stability in corporate jobs. I've been saying this for 10 years, and now I'm so happy that people are actually listening to me. But my perspective is we are all self-employed. There is nothing at all wrong with being an employee, and there's people who like it, and I think there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, where you find something that works for you. But I'd love it if all of us would really look at our careers as if we're always self-employed. You need to always be never trusting one source of income. You always need to have your feet on the street. You need to be looking for various ways to bring in revenue, and never just depend on somebody else for your livelihood. Even if you're an employee and you take on that perspective, it's really going to help you a lot.
Exactly.